Team, welcome to the Michael James podcast. I want to be the first to welcome you in on a great conversation I recently got to have with Jeff Seamans. Now, if you don't know who Jeff is, don't worry about it. You're about to get to know him pretty well. But just to highlight a couple things, Jeff's retired from our United States Army. He's currently a K-9 officer. He is a great dad, an awesome husband, and honestly, probably one of the more stoked people I ever met. We talk about Jeff's time in the military, his time at Amazon. We talk about at an early age how he found his purpose and passion so clearly. We also talk about later maybe some future plans for Jeff. We talk about some health. We talk about fitness and the importance of keeping health and fitness alive in your body at all times. Okay? If you guys get anything out of this episode, do me a favor, just share it. I don't ask nothing else. Just share it. I hope there's something in here that can help you. Aside from that, it's just a great conversation. So with all that being said, let's go meet Jeff. Are we good? All right, cool.
Let's roll.
All right. Jeff Seamans, thank you for being on the podcast. We appreciate it.
Number one.
No, 001, man. Now it has to be number one because we said it. Jeff, anybody that is listening that doesn't know anything about you, could you just briefly describe yourself a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Jeff Seamans, originally from a small town up in Massachusetts. Grew up one of number 4 of 5 kids in the family, so I was always pretty busy growing up. Went to college down here in Pennsylvania. Did the world tour at the Army for a while. Ended up back here after meeting my beautiful bride, Lauren. And here we are a couple kids later.
Yeah.
Recording a podcast.
There we go, man. Like how we got here. There it is. There it is. So
that's a short version.
Being from Massachusetts, I hear no accent.
No, it's kind of gone.
It's gone. And Lauren, I've talked about that before. I've asked her, and she said when you drink, it sometimes comes out.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When I'm around the company of other Bostonians, it absolutely comes out.
Okay. When you guys got your Dunkin', you're drinking your Dunkin'. What do they call it up there?
Dunks.
Dunks. That's right. I knew it wasn't Dunkin'. Okay, cool. So you're 1 of 4?
4 of 5.
You're 4 of 5.
Yeah.
Wow. So there's five kids total.
5 kids total.
All right. And you are where in there?
Number 4.
You're number 4. And
I got 2 older brothers, an older sister, and a younger sister.
Okay.
So it's 3 boys, 2 girls.
Wow. That's a big family.
It was.
And the age group is spread out?
52 to 36.
Oh, wow.
35.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. So growing up in your household with that many kids, what was it like? Would you briefly describe your childhood growing up?
Yeah, and I had a great childhood. So it was just, 2 of my older brothers and my little sister were already kind of grown up and gone by the time me and my little sister came about. It's from my father's first marriage, but we were all just one big happy family growing up. One time I called my older sister, "You're not my real sister," because she's only my half sister, and I quickly got knocked down a few pegs for that.
Yeah,
so we're always one big family growing up.
Yeah.
All the good times and the bad times. Yeah, pretty good childhood, normal growing up. One thing is my father was killed when I was 11 years old. So that had a big effect on my life and kind of the trajectory of my life growing up.
That's really actually very impactful, especially at that age.
Correct. Yeah, just as you're coming into...
That's a prime age.
Right.
That's tough.
We just had a good family to kind of pick up the pieces.
So
you're never filling the pieces, but you kind of picking them up as you go.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
I mean, the power of family. I mean, I know a few other families that have a lot of siblings, but they're not tight like you're describing, and the difference is huge.
Absolutely.
Huge.
I think we had every excuse in the book in life to kind of go the wrong way.
Yeah.
And have every excuse to go that way, but we always kept each other in check and kept on the right path.
Sure.
Going forward. I mean, you make mistakes along the way, but that's just part of growing up.
Yeah, yeah. But you have a good basis to also keep you accountable too.
Absolutely.
Call you out in your bullshit, right?
Yeah.
And that's super important. So 11 years old, you lost your father, and this was unexpected. I'm assuming the way you're describing. Okay. All right. So going into, your teenage years, did you start to get an idea then of we're talking, you're an officer now, you have a military background, like, is that something?
No, that started way before that.
Oh, wow.
So my dad was a Vietnam vet.
Okay, so this was like
It was just, you never really talked about it, but like 4 or 5 years old, I went to my first air show, which was just super impactful for me. Just seeing the power and the might of the United States military. And grew up wanting, playing G.I. Joes, Commando this, running around the backyard in the woods. And it just I was always drawn in that direction.
Okay.
Finding some of my dad's old like Army clothes in the basement. My grandfather was also a World War II vet.
Okay.
So he was around a lot when I was growing up.
So was it like what do you think it was that attracted you? Because I always find people that go into the military, the way I think of it anyway,
Right.
their makeup and the way they view that is different than like a civilian's look at it. I feel anyway. I'm just saying like that's like especially at that age. Was it the unity, or was it just because your dad, your grandfather, like because my grandfather was in the Army. I didn't want to be in the Army.
I just the allure of running around the woods with guns and.
Okay, so you're an adrenaline junkie
To an extent, absolutely. It was always just cool.
Okay.
That's the way I always looked at it. And as I got older, you realize the ramifications and the seriousness of it all.
Right.
But then you get into it, and it's the military is truly the melting pot of America. I've served with people who had Fortune 500 careers in finance, making millions of dollars a year,
Wow.
then joining the military to make $18,000 a year, to someone who's coming out of a community where his first pair of shoes he's ever gotten is in the Army.
Wow.
And it all comes together, and it's once you get there, it's a culture of accountability. Life can be very demanding and difficult.
Yeah.
But it's just, you realize once you're in it how important it is.
Sure. So it's like an equalizer.
It certainly is.
So all walks of life get in there, and it's
people
like
fail
neutral.
at it, and there's no one's ever been able to figure out why people fail in that environment, why people quit and others don't.
Right.
And you can have all the psychological studies, and some people quit, some don't, and there's really no
I
there's
guess
no predictors of it.
Yeah.
There's no way to predict it.
Yeah. I think maybe part of it, my guess would be, is that makeup at a young age where like you already enjoyed the experience and you didn't even have it yet.
Right.
Like, I thought of it.
Right.
So you almost were a little probably more mentally prepared of like how challenging it was going to be maybe.
Right.
That's just my guess anyway.
Yeah.
Because you see some people get talked into going into
Right.
that, and that's, I don't know how you can talk someone in. I feel like you're either in it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the matter of, I just I never quit anything I did. You fail a lot in life, but I never quit. That was just never a thing for me.
Right.
I'll just keep going and going.
That's good, man.
Until you fail or you win.
And you learn something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
End up failing a lot more than winning, but
Yeah.
it's the journey.
So, yep, exactly. Right. So it's the journey, and it's the purpose of why am I doing this?
Right.
So when you fail anything, even me, I had the same thing. Well, I always ask myself, why the heck am I even doing this? And if you have a good answer, then you should keep going.
Right.
If you don't, then maybe you're
reevaluate your situation.
Yeah. So in high school, you had thoughts of going into the military in high school. That was already kind of the plan.
Correct.
In high school, would you describe yourself as you remind me of a very stoic guy now? Are you always like that?
I'd say to some extent.
Okay.
Played high school football, was captain of the football team.
Okay. So leadership was something was natural to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's something I was just kind of fell into. And I think a lot of that was just my work ethic.
Yeah.
Leadership is one of those traits where you're born. I think some people are born with innate abilities in it, but it's something that has to be trained.
Sure.
And it's something you have to practice and learn from and develop. And that's just one of those things where I was always kind of, with coaches growing up, always kind of steered me into being leaders. I think a lot of it just came down to work ethic and a no quit attitude.
Yeah.
And you kind of learn how to be a leader along the way, whether it's, with the sports team, in the military, with your family. you it's a learned behavior and a learned trait
Yeah, sure.
rather than a natural ability at times.
I totally agree. I totally agree with
Some
you.
people just have like those natural leadership qualities,
Yeah.
but if you don't practice it and learn on it,
Yeah.
it's you're not gonna get
No,
your true
it's
potential.
a
in it.
muscle. And the thing that with leadership, my take on it is a lot of people want to be a leader.
Right.
The question is when shit's just not going right and sucks, that is when it's time to
Right.
shine. So that's when, like, are you a leader or not, right? It's easy to be a leader when everything's going well.
Right.
So that's, you're right. It's a muscle and, it needs to be challenged.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So captain of the football team.
Yeah.
Were you really into football? Was that like,
No, I played it just in high school. I
Okay.
mean, I just love the physicality of it, the strategy behind it.
mhm.
There's sometimes just going out in the gridiron, smashing
good.
things. It
Felt
felt
good.
good. Right.
Give a couple hits, take a couple
Right.
hits.
I was never the most athletic kid growing up, but I just never quit.
Right.
I mean, I remember my freshman year, just playing football. I screwed up my feet royally. Whether I basically pulled both my Achilles. I could barely walk. I was coming out of practice on my tiptoes, but I went to practice every day and hung in as best I could.
You're one of those guys.
Yeah, my mom was like, "What is wrong with you?" I was like, "Nothing. I'm fine."
That's funny. That's funny. So, I mean, but this all describes of why someone like yourself went into the military. It's all mindset. You
Right.
have, it's mindset, and and you're someone that reminds me that you need to be challenged.
Yeah.
If you're not being challenged, you're probably bored.
Bored out of my mind.
Yeah, I get that. Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense. So out of high school, going into college, you went to college where?
Valley Forge Military College.
Okay.
I applied to one college coming out of high school. It was all or nothing. It was either
You burned the boats. Like that
Absolutely.
I was either getting in or wasn't.
I was either getting in or I was just enlisting in the Army.
Okay.
It was one or the other.
Okay.
And then I was planning on just enlisting in the Army. I went to a college fair with my buddies, in high school. Saw the booth for Valley Forge. I was like, oh, this looks interesting. They're going to make me an Army officer after my sophomore year of college. Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
I applied,
Got in.
got in. They gave me a bunch of scholarship money and
Oh.
went to Valley Forge.
So I am very unfamiliar of like what that might be as far as college goes. Like, what's the can you describe what like going through college like that in that like format?
Yeah, it's a unique. There's 5 junior military colleges in the country, with Valley Forge Military College being one of them. Typically, to be an officer in the Army, you go to a 4-year college. At the end of your 4-year bachelor's, when you get your bachelor's degree, then you commission as officer in the United States Army. Valley Forge has a program where you get to that point after your sophomore year.
Okay.
So I'm 2 years ahead of everybody else.
Okay. So I see.
It's like an accelerated program.
Yep.
But I'm 20 years old at this point, a second lieutenant in the United States Army, which is out of the thousands of new officers every year, there's 100 in that cohort.
Okay.
So I, kind of the story of it all. I went to go to Valley Forge a week after I graduated high school. I'm in Fort Knox, Kentucky, that basic training. From there, then you go into Valley Forge Military College. It's like normal college classes, but it's a all male college environment. There was about 100 kids in my class, so it's a
Okay.
very small school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very small.
So being a small school, this is like a lot different than like a typical college. How did you guys blow off steam? Like what?
A lot of time in the gym.
Okay.
Some fighting occasionally.
All those guys. Like,
Yeah, it's a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is also with ROTC. We're taking trips like twice a month on weekends to Fort Indian Town Gap, down to a military base in Virginia. We're being tested for 48 hours, and leadership, marksmanship, and kind of basic soldier stuff. So you're just so tired all the time that you're just tired of being tired a lot.
Okay.
And then you get all your academic stuff on top of it.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I'm like, as far as like, I don't know, what are we calling them? Professors, instructors? Like, what do you have at a military college?
So you just have like normal, like
It's just normal.
I took English class, math, statistics.
Okay.
I criminal justice major. So I had a, criminal justice professor that teaches you normal stuff that, doesn't matter what college you go to, you're learning the basics. But ROTC also has classes where it's active duty service members that are kind of stationed at a college that instruct in the ROTC program.
Okay. Wow. I mean, I've always known of Valley Forge,
Right.
but I didn't ever met anybody that actually went there.
Right. So they have the high school and then the college.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I've never met anybody that actually went through there, so
Right.
I was a little curious what that environment's like. So only
100 in my college class, and then like 30 of us were in the ROTC program. So a lot of people go there. They didn't do too well in high school. They kind of go there for a year to kind of get their grades up, do some well academically, then transfer on to bigger colleges. We had a lot of like really good Division I athletes go there, play football.
Yeah. So I mean, 100 students. You said there was only 4 colleges like this.
There's 5 in the country.
5. So this is hard to get into.
To an extent, yeah.
I mean, there's numbers just make it seem like that's hard to get into.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's an honor to when you got that, approval that you were getting in there. You're probably pretty jacked.
That was absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, congratulations on that. Even that's an achievement in itself, man. So when you're in there, did you have an idea what I mean, you're going in the Army, I guess.
Well, September 11th happens.
Okay. Yeah.
My sophomore year of high school.
All right. So that's a big motivator.
Right. So, and then, the pilot of the plane that hit the first World Trade Center, they lived up the street from me. Wow. I didn't know the family too well. Like I just kind of knew of them. They had a huge farm, but so like they live up the street from me. Hometown connection. 2 of the flights come out of Boston that day. We got dismissed early from school because we had a bunch of students, throughout the school whose parents or whatnot relatives were on those flights.
Okay.
So we're out of school over that day. Fighter jets go flying over my house at one point, 100 feet off the ground within, 2 hours of the World Trade Center and the Pentagon being hit. So like, that's just and I'm watching this happen. There's nothing I can do about it as a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
So you see that. And then, shortly thereafter, like a distant cousin, he's in the invasion of Afghanistan. So I'm always like, kind of always hearing about this, but I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And that just, made it even worse, or not worse, but.
Well, it was a driver for you.
A driver,
you were motivated.
I'm in college too. Kid in my high school football team who was a lineman next to me was killed in Iraq during the invasion. Another kid I knew, one of the first casualties in Iraq was another friend of mine who was 2 years ahead of me in high school, who had joined the Army. I met him on leave just before he went to Iraq. He was killed in a helicopter crash like a couple weeks later. So it's just always hitting close to home with me.
Yeah.
And I was just wanted to be like a small part of it. However, contribute however way I could.
Yeah.
It just drove me more to get to that goal.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah. So you were taking negatives and trying to turn it into a positive,
right?
Technically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, so you've experienced a lot of devastation. That is tough. That's something that I don't know how a lot of the military people deal with because they see some crazy shit.
Right.
And that haunts people forever.
That absolutely does.
They see it's I've heard stories and I've even known some people, but that's a challenge.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's something you were already aware of before you even embarked. Like, hey, look, I'm probably going to see things that are going to be with me for the rest of my life.
Right.
And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Correct.
Yeah. Oh, man. But I mean, again, this goes back to mindset. It sounded like you had a goal. You wanted to be a part of something. Any way you could contribute, you were going to do it. Like whatever that meant, you felt like that was your calling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So your time there, was it, where were you based at? Like when you went in, were you in Pennsylvania?
So I graduated college as a second lieutenant in the Army.
Okay.
When I was in college, I joined the Pennsylvania Army National Guard. And after I commissioned, I stayed in the National Guard. Like you have the option to go like active duty Army. But the reason I stayed in the Pennsylvania National Guard was the unit I was in was deploying to Iraq in 2008. Okay. So I graduated from Valley Forge in 2006. There's a bunch of schooling you have to do in the military after you become an officer. And it's like depending on your job, it's like a 12 to 18 month pipeline to kind of get through all the training. So I knew by the time I'd get all that done, the unit I was in, we'd be going to Iraq, and that was in late 2008.
Okay. So in that time, when did you meet Lauren?
In 2006, 7.
Anybody watching this,
Right.
Lauren's here.
Yeah.
She's over there smiling right now.
Yeah, so after Rally Forge, I was living in Wayne. That's when I met Lauren.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And were you guys was it a quick, easy connection? Was it like, hey, I know her for a while, like, is this gonna be a thing? Or like
Quick, easy
it was?
connection.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And how that happened?
We met through friends of a friend
Okay.
and just kind of hit it off. And
A friend of a friend. So like
yeah, like she was friends with, like we had a mutual friend, and then just kind of the course of everyone hanging out and whatnot.
okay.
We met, and
All right. And what was she like back then when you first met her? Everything she is now?
absolutely,
Better now.
absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah, no, it was
She's watching, so be careful.
absolutely. No, it was just a natural connection that everything just kind of clicked.
Yeah, that's cool. Same thing. I with my wife. We grew up. We knew each other growing
Right.
up, but we didn't actually get together until after high school. But it was one of those things where I just knew. Like after high school, we got together. I knew immediately. I'm like, that's like it was
Absolutely. It's
Yeah,
just
like,
an
and that's
easy-
probably what it was. Like you.
Probably one of the easiest decisions you've ever made.
Yeah, that's how you know.
Getting to that point is a lot, but
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
you're there, it's like, all right, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, yeah. So you guys got together. How long did you know each other before you got married?
It was about a year and a half, 2
Okay,
years.
Year and a half. And I know, so she briefly told me that your firstborn, you were deployed. You weren't even here, correct? Right. Okay. Can we talk about that real quick? 'Cause
Yeah,
you hear these
absolutely.
stories all the time, and just curious. Like, I mean, that would be I mean, watching my kids be born, and especially my first, like to have to miss that, is tough. And I'm just curious, like how you mentally, broke all that down.
Right. Yeah. So like we knew she was pregnant right before I deployed. I actually found out I was on the tarmac at Philly International, literally standing on like the side of the runway,
Okay.
waiting to get on a plane to go down to Mississippi for some training. And when she had told me that she was pregnant, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Now I'm going to go sit on a plane for 3 hours and stew over this. You're prepared. You're always, it's just, first child, like it's a shock no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot,
Yeah.
everything's kind of changing
Yeah.
very rapidly.
Yeah.
So I go down to down Mississippi and come home about 2 weeks later, and everything's great, whatnot. And then in January I left my rack. She was due in May. So with the time difference between here and Baghdad, you're looking at 8 or 9 hours about. So at the time we were live on webcam, like old school, like Skype.
Yeah, they didn't have like the Zoom, I guess, like they have
Right, it was-
on the FaceTime and
Right. And we had where I was in Iraq, we had 5 computers for like 200 people.
Oh, geez.
So, but all the guys I was with, I know, just real well. They kind of, I was on the computer for like 12 hours straight on like webcam. I think at some point, like an IED had gone off near us. So like the explosion goes off, like, and like I'm in charge of all this too. But my guys were like, sir, we got it. Not a big deal. If there's anything serious, we'll let you know.
Okay.
Do your thing. There's a couple other guys I deploy with, have gone through the same thing. Their wives gave birth while we were deployed.
So they know what you were going through.
Right.
They've experienced it and they understand.
Yeah. And it's, they just, hey, sir, we'll take care of all this. If something seriously goes wrong, we'll come get you. Other than that, and I think the internet had gone out a couple times. There's satellite internet, things happen.
Yeah.
Especially in the desert.
Yeah,
And-
there's nothing there. I've never been, but from what I've seen in movies and heard people talk about it, it's
Yeah, it's
dusty, sandy, and
that's it.
yeah.
A little warm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you watch this live on webcam for 12 hours, and it didn't seem real till I got home.
Yeah, I can only
And, like, you
imagine.
get the
That's what I'm
pictures,
saying.
and,
Like,
you hear the baby crying, and a friend of mine who I deploy with, his wife had given birth like 2 weeks prior, so like we had the celebratory cigar afterwards, and no alcohol, but cigar, and it was the middle of the night when Madeline was born. And I remember that was like 3 in the morning. Me and my buddy Tony had a cigar, and like life just kind of went on for us.
Yeah. So like during labor, you were aware she was in labor.
Yeah, I watched it
You
all.
watched it. That's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was a shock to like a lot of the staff at the hospital. Like this was going on.
Is the hospital like set up for that to have a camera in there?
No, we brought our MacBook
Okay,
and
they just were like
connected to the Wi-Fi.
yeah, and Dad's got to be able to see.
Right. You know, I was fortunate that I was able to see.
Yeah.
It just kind of it just fell in the where we lived that we just had internet. There were points during that point where we didn't have internet or any phones or
So you were actually very lucky that you were even
yeah,
able to
correct.
be
At the
live
time, like it just all kind of
wow.
clicked.
Wow. So after she was born, how long were you there until you came home and actually met her for the
That was
first
May, and then I was back in late September.
time? Okay.
About 5 months.
That's like 5 years when you have a brand new baby that you
Right,
just can't wait
exactly.
to meet. That was like an eternity.
Absolutely.
Man, that's tough. So being over there, for someone like myself, I've never been there. You see what you see in movies and you hear these stories. Can you just, I don't want to touch on anything that you might not want to talk about, but anything you feel
like when I was in Iraq was in 2008, beginning of 2009. It was like we had the surge in 07 to 09 where they sent 100,000 more soldiers into Iraq. So I was in a land area basically the size of Montgomery County that we owned.
okay.
Called the Battle Space Owner, where like we're in charge of like helping establish the local government. So like during the day, like we kind of help the government, run operations, go to like the town council meetings, meet with all the village elders, help schools, build roads. And then at nighttime, we were going out and arresting terrorists and bad guys.
Wow.
So it was kind of, you never know. There would be a day I'd be up for 48 hours straight. It's just because it was continuous operations. And my primary job, when I was in the Army, I was an artillery officer. So anything, artillery cannons, mortars, anything that falls out from an airplane, from a helicopter, I was responsible for. And I also assisted in, it's called non-lethal operations, where it's like a hearts and minds.
Okay.
Assisting the government, information operations, using our information and our sources to kind of help the local government, whether it's, propping up certain schools, building certain schools in like certain neighborhoods.
So you guys were there contributing to
Correct. Right.
So that was like a day job, and then like your Batman job was like
Right. At nighttime.
their missions
right.
at nighttime.
And a lot of the time, like at the time we were assisting the Iraqi army and the Iraqi police.
Okay.
So everything we were doing, they were doing with us. We were supporting them. So it was joint operations, going in, and a lot of the times we're going after like criminals, like murderers, rapists, and assisting the Iraqi police and arresting those people.
Wow.
We just have the American military just has the resources to kind of bring it that extra mile.
Yeah.
In terms of watching from the sky, aerial imagery,
Okay.
just different capabilities that the American military has. At the time, the Iraqi army and the police just didn't have those capabilities.
Right. Any specific mission or task that is a story worth sharing that I've heard some crazy stories, and sometimes people don't want to share, and I don't want to make you share anything you don't want to share. Or is it like I tried to forget some of this?
You try and forget some of it, but it was like, I call it the best, worst experience of my life.
Okay.
The one time I met he was a sheikh, a village elder, and, I met him that morning. We had met with him, had tea. The guy had, on like one hand, he had like 3 fingers. On the other hand, he had 2 fingers. He'd been blown up during the invasion of Iraq in 2003, fighting us. And now he's like kind of on our side in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
But like we go do a raid on a house. I think it was, maybe a week or 2 later, like we were arresting one of his sons. Like it was just weird how it all just kind of came to be.
So how does that? He's fighting against
right back in,
Americans.
like people always change sides depending on where the money was coming from.
Okay. Okay.
So like in 2007, a lot of people were fighting the Americans. Then we started a militia program. Then we were kind of paying everyone to provide security.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone would kind of stop fighting the Americans,
All right.
and contribute to its own country's security.
Okay.
That's kind of like by no means am I an expert on foreign policy, but that's just kind of
Okay.
how the game
How
was,
it
and
shakes out a little
right,
bit.
how it shakes out a little bit.
Yeah.
Depending on where you were in the country, the different nuances with who liked you, who didn't like you, how much money that we flowed into a local economy.
Yeah, I bet you the stories, the things you've experienced are probably actually a lot different than what we would experience watching on TV or even hearing on the news and stuff like
Right.
that. You know, I would only imagine just by a couple of things you're just saying.
Yeah, and there was always like people would put out IEDs every night trying to blow up like us or the Iraqi army. And like that was constant, like 3 or 4 nights a week of like there would be teams that would go out to like make sure there was no IEDs. Then they would get blown up. Then we would have to go help them out. And it was just like a constant like cat and mouse game to an extent. And one story we have, it was actually pretty funny. Aircraft would fly over during the day to like check the roads for IEDs. And it's thermal imaging cameras just from like a F-16 or something like that. And they go out flying. It's like 120 degrees. Like nobody wants to do anything. It's way too hot. And
It's really hot.
It's super hot. And it's like the pilot radios down to I lived in a combat outpost. There was just about 100 Americans living with the Iraqi army. It was an old Iraqi police station. So we're just living there. It's just us. And the F-16 like radios down to us. Hey, like pretty sure there's an IED on the side of the major highway. It's a hot spot. He's radioing down. He's like absolutely positive it's an IED. So I get a patrol going out there, and the guys go out there. I end up staying back. Wasn't too far. It was a bag of ice that someone had thrown out.
I mean, but
And it's just like the dumb things like that. Like
good chances, though.
And then my guys were like so pissed at me afterwards. Like, you sent us out there for a goddamn bag of ice.
yeah, but what if it was something serious?
Right, exactly. But at the same time, we tell the pilot that, and he's like, he forgot that like you can switch it between black is hot or white is hot, and whatever way he had switched it, he should have seen it that was cooler than everybody else. By the time they get out there, the ice was melted, but it was literally like a bunch of like 20-pound ice bags that you would get from the gas station.
Oh my god, that's funny.
And it's just
I mean, you guys have to have a laugh though, right?
You have to have a laugh about it.
I mean, otherwise
you see like you make the dumbest mistakes, but it's but at the same time, the guys I was in charge of and worked with like trusted you enough to say like, hey, this needs to get done, and they executed without hesitation. They may question you or be like, hey, why are we doing this? Okay, this is the reasons A, B, and C, but they execute.
Right. So you ran a team, like you were head of like what? Like
I was second in command of an infantry company.
Okay, second in command.
So I had the captain of the company. Like he was the company commander, and then I was the fire support officer. Second in command. There was about 190 of us.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's a pretty big leadership role. You gotta have people from all over the country, from America, that are there with you. You don't necessarily know these people. When you have a position like that, is that just automatic that he's higher in command, so like whether I like this dude or not, I'm respecting him, or you still had to earn that respect from the guys beneath you to respect you as a leader? Was that like challenging?
Yeah, absolutely. Because even though on paper you're like outrank them,
right?
People aren't going to perform for you if you're not willing to get in the trenches and do it with them.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception in military that automatically just
right now
higher rank are just like. I don't think that.
I've had peers, guys the same rank of me, completely fail in their positions because the people under them just didn't care.
Right.
There was no organizational buy-in.
Right.
You need to create a leadership culture and just a culture within an organization where we accept only excellence. You can fail within that framework, but as long as we're improving and striving to improve, and you can trust your peers and your subordinates and superiors, Success breeds success.
Yeah. So what like maybe some of the other strategies you maybe use to gain the respect, or at least I guess respect's probably the best word, because even if they didn't like you or did like whatever, they at least were going to respect you and respect the fact that like, hey, he's above me and I'm going to have to do what he has to, do whatever he tells me to do, we're going to do.
I was always open to listening to everybody.
Okay.
Is a huge thing. I was always okay with people questioning me in my judgment.
So you're open-minded.
There's a time and a place when you're in an operation like, hey, A, B, and C needs to be done. Do it now.
Like
But in order to get to that point of someone executing it when you tell them to, that trust is built up a year prior as you're going through training and they're questioning you and you're like, okay, that's a better idea. Or you let a subordinate be like, hey, we're running this operation. Yes, I'm in charge, but you plan it. And if the plan it's acceptable, like let's execute it.
You allow some of these guys to be their own leaders, like within.
Right, they have to. And then I'm in charge of people who've been in the military for 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
That's 10 to 15 years of experience that I don't have.
Right.
That you leverage to make the organization win.
Right. So you said we only accept excellence. Is that what you said? Like that was
part of it.
That was like,
right.
That was a drive. Okay. And did you ever have any issues where anyone came to you where you had a hard time working something out, where you have a call and they think a different way, and how maybe you resolve something?
A lot of times I would defer to somebody else.
Okay.
If it's not going to get anybody hurt and we're still getting to the same place at the end, let's go with it. Why not?
Yeah.
What's it going to hurt? There's a time but like, when you make those critical decisions, there's like a relationship built beforehand.
Yeah.
Which allows you to make those decisions.
Sure. This is so similar to business because like, I'm a leader in my company, but right. I look at everyone who works for me as like, they're a leader. So right. Like you have your task, but like everyone who works for me might say I'm different. Like I always say I'm not a micromanager, and people are like, yes, you are. Yes, you are. But I don't like to be. I don't want to be. I really do want. I want to hear from my team members, and I want to hear their take, and I want them to tell me if I'm like being ridiculous or right. Like it's a bad call or whatever. And I also am okay with them making some mistakes, but kind of what you were just saying, like how, like, what is this going to hurt? Like if it's not major, like let's try it out your way. Let's see what's the worst going to happen.
Right.
And that is a tactic I use as a leader because I want it to feel like a culture, not like I give an order, you do it. If you don't do it, then you're out of here. Like I don't believe in that culture. And I think military people just would assume it's either that's what it is or nothing. But you're saying they come to you, you're open-minded, you're willing to listen, hear it out.
Like you're being the boss, like you're able to step back and look at the whole picture.
Yeah.
Where if you're a trade plumber running a pipe, I don't know too much about construction. Running a pipe up this wall.
Plumbers and pipes, we're good. We're on the same.
Yeah, absolutely. We're on the same. But the electrician needs to come in and run a wire the same place.
Yeah.
But the engineers got to put a load bearing beam here.
Sounds like you know a lot about construction.
We can't do all three at the same. We can't do all three at the same time. But you have to step back and look at the big picture.
Yeah.
Like how can we get the plumber, the electrician, and the engineer all on the same path?
Yep. Yep. And typically someone in that leadership role needs to step in because I've actually had very similar scenarios that you're talking about, and there was almost bloodshed several times.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Like
everyone's idea is always the best.
Yeah. And they're right, and everybody's always right.
Right.
And I have a saying, when everybody's right, nobody's right.
Right.
So leadership, you had a leadership role in the Army, and you came home and you said it was your daughter's born in May. You came home in September, right?
Yep.
Okay. So when you came home, did you have to go back again, or once you came home, I
was done. Like I went traditional National Guard, like 1 weekend a month.
Okay.
The commercial says 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer, but it's a lot more than that.
All right. Got it. And what's the plan like after that? Like, what did you?
I kind of had no plan.
Okay. Would you say this was the first time in your life, like, I didn't know, you don't know it, like, what am I going to do next?
Yeah, I was almost kind of a little lost. I was working, I guess, part-time as an EMT 911 ambulance service. I had done EMT, like the certification class when I was in high school at night. And then so kind of the military is always everyone always, it's a big networking. Like networking is a huge thing. A friend of mine had started working at Fort Dix doing government contracting. And then I came on with him. He brought me in, got me an interview and did government contracting work for a while, where I taught the Air Force has a like pre-deployment course. Anyone going overseas in the Air Force goes through this 10-day course, and I taught at that course for about a year and a half.
Oh wow! All right.
So it was a good time.
So wait, you were an EMT?
Correct.
And is that something you already trained from your military training? That just carried over? That had to be a whole new.
When I was a senior in high school, I signed up for like the EMT course. It was like 2 nights a week, and did that when I was in high school.
Interesting. So after that, I read in your bio that you worked at Amazon.
Correct. After government contracting,
that was the next.
I went to Amazon.
Okay. And what was the appeal like?
So government contracting, everything's a 365-day contract, and from year to year, you don't know whether the contract's going to get renewed.
Okay.
It's a very you never know what's going to happen in the contracting world.
And now you have a family.
Right. I got a family. There's rumors that the contract might end. Another company's going to come in and probably hire me.
Yeah.
But are they going to pay the same? They're probably going to pay less. Who knows?
Yeah, it's too unpredictable.
It's very unpredictable.
Yeah.
It's great money. It's just unpredictable. So another friend of mine went to work at Amazon. They hire a lot of military officers coming out, so I went and worked at Amazon for a couple months as like a warehouse manager.
So right to a management position?
Yes.
And I'm only going to guess because of your background.
Right.
That was like a good fit for you.
Yeah, Amazon has a big military recruitment program.
Oh, I didn't know
for officers. So they bring in kind of like middle management, running a warehouse.
So you would report to the same warehouse every day?
Yeah. Yep. Like I ran the like receiving department. Like these warehouses are so big. Like there's like a manager for like just cargo coming in, a manager for like the middle shipping of putting it on the shelves. Then when you order something, another manager's in charge of the department that takes it off the shelf. Then another manager's in charge of the department that sends it out on the truck. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean it's a big machine.
Right, it's a huge machine.
It's a big machine. So would you coming out of the military, would you say a lot of what you've learned there carried right over to a job like that? Was that like second nature to be in like a leadership role? Like, I mean, I know you're not in the military, but I find business and management is there's so much connected from that structure.
Huge connection. Yeah. And I'm not good with the numbers behind things. Like there are some guys I worked with at Amazon, like Excel spreadsheets, making formulas. How can we improve in this area? Like I made all my improvements with relationships with people. If I empowered people to, let's try something new, do things. Hey, can we try this instead? If it makes you happier and us more efficient, it's a win-win. That's how I always improved in the organization, where you get a lot of kids, like a lot of guys and gals just coming out of college, could put together these elaborate Excel spreadsheets to make widgets unbox faster. Like none of that made sense to me.
Yeah.
I just didn't, it's just not the way I think.
Yeah.
And you just build a relationship with people and things happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I've always been a relationship guy myself.
You learn you learn the Excel stuff as you go along.
And that's what I was going to say.
But
it's almost a little more human being of dealing with it that way. But then some people are just analytical. Like that's just how they see the world. And that's fine. That's cool. And that's what makes the world go round and actually makes a better team. But I'm a little more like you. Like if I look at a spreadsheet for too long, my eyes glaze over and
I have no idea what's going on.
That's cool.
Right.
That's cool. So how long did you stay there?
It was only about 6 months or so.
Okay. And reason being?
No, then I got hired as a police officer.
Okay. So you decided when you were working at Amazon you wanted to go into being an officer.
Yeah, that was always kind of the end goal.
Okay. But not when you left the military. You weren't sure. Like,
No, I always knew I wanted to be a police officer.
oh, so
That's what my father had done.
Okay.
Like I grew up with that.
Okay.
I grew up in that, I guess, culture to an extent.
All right.
Both my brothers are cops. So it was kind of
But are you the only one that went to the military in your family?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I'm the only one to go that route.
Okay. So 6 months at Amazon, 6 months not long. So like what, month 3 you're in and you're starting to like,
Yeah, like I just
do
started,
you have to go to like, so because
I
you
started applying to police departments like before that.
so when you're in the military though, like, do you just get to, because I have a few friends that went into being cops, but like they had to go to the school, but they weren't in the military. Because you're in the military, do you just apply? Or do you
No,
have
it's
to,
like I still have to go through all the
you
testing.
still have to go?
and,
Okay. All right.
You get like I have like 5 or 10 points added to like your score on the test because for military service.
So, all right, going into being a cop, it's a different. Now, this is like, well, it's similar to your lifestyle as when you were in the military, I guess, to a degree. You're canine,
Correct.
which is a big thing for you, and I know you're a huge dog lover. Was that out of the gate or no?
No, it was, you got to put in some time, just like as a
Before
regular,
you can even.
like apply for something like that.
Okay.
Depends on the department, but you gotta learn how to be a cop before you can add a dog to the mix.
Yeah. Improve you take care of yourself and do the right thing.
Correct. Right.
You're responsible for an animal.
Right. Exactly.
Got it.
Right.
Always a dog guy? Was you a dog?
Yeah, absolutely. My father was a canine handler. He'd started the canine program in his department.
Yeah.
In like probably 1989-ish,
Wow.
1990. So like I grew up with it.
Wow. It sounds like your dad would be super proud of you, just so you know, because the path you took, it was a lot of it in honor almost. It seems like I'm just from an outsider's perspective of honoring his life almost to a degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is really, really cool. So you canine officer. What is the difference of being a canine officer? I know a lot of people see people drive, cops have but not everybody understands the whole thing. Like, can you describe what it is like being a canine officer?
Yeah, so it's every like agency does things a little different, but primarily I'm responsible to go to like all crimes in progress. So if there's a robbery, basically anyone who's commits a crime and is now fleeing, like I'm responsible to go to that incident and like help out any way I can. Like the dog is a tool. And it's a locating tool to find people or evidence. And I'm just using the dog to, leverage us, either arresting somebody or finding evidence to hopefully arrest somebody on later on down the road. Or, just help out a case any way you can.
I can only imagine. So the training for a dog,
right?
You typically would get this dog at puppy age. Is that
about 18 months old?
Okay, 18 months old.
18 to 24, somewhere in there.
And then you are in training with the dog at that point for how long? Because obviously the dog's got.
That's about 20 weeks, 6 months ish of training.
Okay, wow. And then this dog also comes home with you.
Yep.
I don't think a lot of people know that.
Absolutely. Yep.
So this is your dog. This is that dog is your responsibility 24/7.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You spend more time with that dog than anybody else. It's a relationship you build with the dog.
Yeah.
Because the dog has to trust you as a human being.
Yeah.
And then I have to trust the dog.
I have an easier time building a relationship with dogs than I do human beings.
It's a lot easier. Right.
So I know. So recently you have a newer dog.
Right.
As of like this past year, with 23 going into 24, and how is that going so far?
That's awesome. It's now it's my second dog. It's you make a lot of mistakes the first go around. I'm still making mistakes now.
Okay. Mistakes how? Like, what do you mean?
Just in training, like saw the dog go this way. Should have had the dog go left instead of right.
Okay.
You're learning a new skill.
All right.
So you're going to make mistakes with that. So a lot of the mistakes I made before, but I also have a new dog, new brain, new animal that does things.
Yeah, they're not a
completely different than the last dog.
Nah, that's true.
Dogs are like people. They have different personalities and.
Yeah. So how long did you have your first dog?
About 7 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
And
so by the time you get to the end of the year, like the later I was in the career with that dog, like we had things dialed in. I knew what that dog was going to do, or if the dog's tail was wagging a certain way, like I knew what was coming next.
wow.
So I'm trying to kind of recreate that magic all over again with the new dog. It
Yeah.
just takes time.
It takes time.
Right.
Wow. And what specifically is the dog trained for? Because I know they train for specifics. Like there's what, like narcotics. There's bomb.
Right. Narcotics, bomb, arson. They have dogs that can find cadavers.
It's crazy to me. It's insane. Like what these dogs could do. It blows my mind.
That's awesome. It's incredible.
Like that recent one with the guy that escaped from jail, was his name Danilo or whatever.
Oh yeah.
The dog
right.
found.
Right. The dog found him.
Ended up finding him. It's
Right.
just really neat.
Yeah.
And your dog is for
Patrol, which is like tracking.
okay.
Like if, someone breaks into your house and is hiding in there, the dog's going to go out and find them.
And how's that work? So somebody calls, somebody broke in the house,
Right.
you roll up. Does the dog get unleashed and you just let it go, or you walk around with the dog and you kind of follow its lead?
Kind of, yes and yes.
Okay.
A lot of, depending on, like dogs have a tough time seeing, like, you got to be, depends on your environment. I know a house like this, like you're probably not going to have any holes in your floors.
Okay.
I'm probably just going to send the dog in. The dog.
Oh, so you have to think of the dog's safety. True, right? You don't know what it's you're
Right,
sending.
you go into
into.
a warehouse. I'm going to keep the dog on a 30-foot line. And let
Okay.
the dog work within the confines of that 30 feet. So even if the dog does fall, like I still have the dog.
Uh-huh.
Or there's just different ways of doing it depending on the environment.
Okay.
But a lot of time is like on a 30-foot line, or the dog is released on its own.
And you're just is there like certain things you're following, like signal wise, to know, like okay,
Yeah. So the dog's trained to find human odor. Okay. So it's we may go in with 4 cops. The dog's gonna like sniff like each person, like, all right, I know you're with me, I know you're with me, I smell something that's not one of you 3.
Okay.
And then when the dog finds that, it starts to bark.
So that's what I was gonna say. What's the signal to know that?
Yeah, each dog is trained to, when like you're hiding somewhere, the dog's gonna start barking. My dog, he jumps like 6 feet in the air, and he just gets so excited that he's found the person. Right.
In my job.
Right, exactly. Yeah, he like leaps. He's like a cat getting electrocuted. Like
Wow.
He jumps up in the air.
Wow. Any stories that you can share of something unique or interesting or experience with
kind
the
of
dog?
the best one, like with my first dog. The best story I have, it was a special needs child had wandered away from home, and they lived near like a really busy roadway. And the thing is, kid was about 10 years old, and everyone, something like that happens. Special needs kid wanders away, is lost. Like every cop in the area is coming
I would
to help
imagine.
out. It's like priority number 1. Drop everything else. This kid's safety is priority 1, and everyone's checking like into the neighborhood. And it was like a real windy day too. And I bring my dog down there, Rookie, and we start to just like, I think it was one of the relatives like, yeah, we last saw him walking this way. And everyone's like checking like in the opposite direction, because that's where the library was and like the neighborhood playground. And the dog just starts tracking toward like a major roadway. And I just, because it was so windy out, it was a real difficult track to do. I was like, hey, everyone just go checking south instead of west. And then one of my guys, one of the other cops found him like the direction we were going. So it like recalibrated the whole search from going one way to another way.
Yeah.
And it's just that, hey, if somebody start going checking that way, and, literally 30 seconds later, one of the other guys ran into him.
Wow.
And got him like as he was like about to cross like a major roadway.
Oh, jeez.
So like, does that like, it just, even though the dog didn't track to the kid, it just.
Yeah, but still, like, it sped out the process, right?
Right,
You guys are about to head in the wrong direction.
Right.
Yeah.
And it, you trust the dog.
And is that like you take a shirt or something? Of
No, the
kid?
dog
Like,
is.
how does it know what you're?
It's just finding human odor, like recent human odor. So the kid had like gone down the alleyway, and the dog smells that like
Something it didn't smell before.
correct. It's just human odor, and we're gonna follow that human odor because I know when I get to the end of it, I usually get my ball. To everything's a game to the dog.
Okay.
I'm gonna get a toy.
So how does a dog get trained in that specifically? Like, give me a rundown. So you
Like
familiarize with all the normal smells, and you guys what implement something that it wouldn't recognize.
like the dogs, where we get our dogs at Penn Vet Working Dog Center, like they start training them at 8 weeks old, and it's literally of you running, down a hallway. The dog sees you, and you go like hide behind a door.
All right.
Then the dog is like let go to like get to you, and it gets a toy. Then you slowly like build from there. Of now you're hiding like at the end of the like all the way in the room. You're hiding behind a door, and you slowly build off of that, and you use different people, and everything is the dog getting rewarded for completing the task, and it just builds off of that from 8 weeks old.
Is every dog cut out for this? Like that gets in there? Like
No, they wash dogs out, and
so like if they're like this one's not going to cut it, like
they just don't have it. Like Penn's program is unique in a way. As the dog gets older, they may change what this dog is going to do, whether it's like search and rescue, be a police dog, or it just doesn't have it and ends up as someone's pet.
wow.
That happens too.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I would imagine just because like they're bred for this, right? Is that
Right.
like? But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean necessarily.
Right.
Like,
Depends
they're
on the
gonna-
breed, and
Yeah.
some like you get a pit bull that has like the genetics to hunt,
Mm-hmm.
where someone's going to lay on your couch for 12 hours a day.
Right. Right.
Just depends on the dog.
Right. Interesting. So having a canine, having a family, you're taking care of a lot of beings.
It's busy.
It's a busy life. It's a busy life. And the dog, so the dog comes home with you
Correct.
every day, night. I know your shifts are different time wise.
Right.
Is that the dog just plays into that, right? I never even thought about that actually. The dog's on
Yeah,
your
no, the
schedule.
dogs. Yeah, he just
Like when it's time to go, it's time to go.
it's time to go.
It doesn't
Right.
matter.
I mean, dogs are very schedule oriented.
Yeah.
He comes and wakes me up at 5 a.m. every morning and
Okay.
wants to eat at 3 o'clock. And
Well, that's what I'm trying to think. So like, yeah, like if
like they're tired at nighttime.
okay.
I mean, they get tired like we do, and he'll sleep, most of the day. I'll put him like in his crate during the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
So if we've worked all night, to kind of force him to get some rest.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they'll work.
They're
They'll work.
workers. So you bring the dog home to your family. So
Right.
now this is not just
it
your
becomes
family. It's like
right.
I mean, I don't want to say it's a family pet, but it's like your family's going to care for this dog now. Like naturally, it's just what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, no, people are going to complain about the dog and its hair and love the dog at the same time. Like everything that comes, just having a big dog with a lot of hair.
And you also have another dog though that's not a police dog, wasn't a
Right.
police dog.
She's just a normal house pet, couch surfer extraordinaire, and
but like I know it might have been a story from your last dog. I think it was the last dog where they didn't get along, right?
correct. Yeah, it was tough.
That
They had to
is-
be separated.
that's
like it was a lot of tension in the house because of that.
Yeah.
Because if they got loose together, it would have been a fight.
And that went on their
Whole lives. Like since day one, they just never.
never
It
got
happens
used to
like
each
people.
other. Yeah, yeah. He just can't move out.
Right. Exactly.
But the new dog,
Yeah, they get along most of the time. Dogs are dogs and
Yeah.
have their little
yeah,
soirees every once in a while.
Right.
But
right.
I couldn't be happier with how it all worked out.
Okay. All right,
Well,
great.
They
That's great.
get a little rough at times. You got to kind of separate them, but
Yeah. But you need a supportive family to do this because
it's a lifestyle change.
exactly
Right. Like I bring my work home with me every day.
every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, as an entrepreneur, like you're bringing your work home with you.
Yeah.
And it's, kind of having that dog. It's some similarities in that.
Yeah, for sure.
Where you're not just done your shift and go home and
No,
forget
you
about it.
can't turn it off because I mean that dog has a certain like you said, maybe schedule or certain
Right.
things, and it probably wants to always be doing something. I would imagine too.
Oh, absolutely. If
Like a
he
dog like
goes
that needs to be entertained a lot.
all the time.
Yeah.
And if you're off for 4 or 5 days, like he'll destroy the house if he's not. They're just busy. He's just always
He needs to be doing
right.
something.
Loves to be outside.
Yeah.
I could throw the ball for the next 3 hours and he's still gonna go.
Okay.
Take him for a 5-mile run. As soon as you get home, he wants to go in the backyard and throw the ball.
Well, he's not done.
He's not done.
He's not
And I'll let you know it.
Yeah. Yeah. So family, another pet coming in. You had one daughter while you were away. You have two other children.
I do.
Okay. And we have a middle child, Lily, right?
Yep, we got Lil.
Okay. And the boy's the last.
Yep, we got Max.
That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted two girls, and I wanted my boy, which is so weird. Growing up, I wanted the opposite. I wanted the boy to be older and hopefully have younger girls. And for some reason, I don't know why, it shifted. And I was like, I want the boy to be the youngest. And that's exactly what I ended up getting. Thank God.
Right.
So, did you always want three kids?
No, just like I always knew I wanted kids, get married,
Okay.
kind of live that part of life.
Okay.
I came from a big family.
Right.
So like I always wanted to,
Yeah,
a couple kids. I grew up like a lot of cousins, aunts, uncles.
Yeah.
I grew up in, I was always bouncing around to different aunts' house. Mom had to work type deal.
Mm-hmm.
My sister had this activity, so I'm at, this cousin's house.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just, got to live a lot of life by being involved with different people.
Yeah, I agree. I come from a big family, and yeah.
Like there's a part of that upbringing where I can kind of plug and play into any atmosphere. And I think a part of that was just kind of bouncing around a bit growing up from,
Yeah.
they're your cousins and aunts and uncles, but they live different lives and run their houses differently than you do.
Yeah. So that being said, are all your kids, because this is just dad to dad, are your kids all like different personalities, like between the three?
Yeah, you can't compare them.
You
Like
can't-
they're their own,
Yeah, they're their own, right?
their own animal in a sense. Like they're just
Yeah. I mean, for different ages a little bit too, but
Right.
like as they get a little older, they start to, that age gap almost shrinks, and it's like I had my two younger sisters when they were younger, they were like different, but then as they got older, they were technically, you're not getting closer in age, but your similarities and your interests get
Right.
closer, so you have a chance to become closer. And so Madeline, she's a teenager now, right?
right. But you see them like they all navigate like life a little differently.
Yeah.
And it's kind of growing to their own person as they get
Yeah.
older.
Yeah.
And the way they just handle different things and different, a lot of the same like experiences and growing up in like the same school district and whatnot.
Yeah.
You kind of know what to expect, but everything's just a little different. And the way each kid handles it's a little different.
Yeah. It's true. And like my son being the youngest, like he lives in his own little island, which is really cool.
Right.
Is your son like that? Is he own little personality, lives in a little world? He's still young, but
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
because the boys are so different than girls. Because I had my two girls, and then like I got a boy. I'm a boy, but like it's kind of funny how very different. Very different.
That's extremely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say any of your, well, again, your son's still young, it's hard to tell, but like maybe one kid more like you, maybe one more like your wife? Have you noticed that there's little traits yet? Like, oh, geez. So-and-so's.
Yeah, I think
like,
you get one child who's like target fixated. Like I get like that. Like you start something new, like Lily, like we're all in.
Okay.
Full send.
All right.
There's no like half-assing it. It's
Mhm.
just let's go. As long as it interests them,
Right. Right.
And I kind of get like that with some things where I'm just all in on it and becomes my sole focus.
Were you always like that? Or do you think
Yeah, I think- yeah.
you were always naturally like that?
Yeah, when like I just like get into something and you shut out like the rest of the world
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah. Would that like even not work related necessarily, like just natural hobbies and interests is what you're talking about. Like
Right.
just like you get into something and you're like
Right.
into it.
Absolutely.
Like I know you're into running, you're into fitness,
Right.
jujitsu. Is that something you've always been into, fitness, or is that from like military, like having to be
Like yeah, when you're in the military, like you hate it.
Okay, right. Because you're forced to do it.
Right, you're forced to do it in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was just part of life.
Yeah.
Now, as I get older, use it as a way to to do difficult things
Yeah.
in a weird sense. It's a way to challenge myself
Right.
within the confines of like not doing something super dangerous where, like my life's in jeopardy or I just love doing difficult tasks.
That's interesting.
Just learning, you learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
And what you're actually capable, what the human body is actually capable of. I'm not the most athletic guy in the world, but I just like doing difficult things.
Right. Yeah. And do you find also is it everyone looks at fitness or that task as different? You're saying like you like to challenge yourself. Is it also something that you do to maybe like escape? Is it a stress reliever for you, or is it just like I like to just beat the shit out of myself and see how fun?
Like all the above. Like I use it as like when I run, like I don't bring headphones, no phone. Like it's just a way to completely unplug.
Yeah. Yep.
And just kind of reset, decompress. You think a lot when you're running like that.
Yeah.
Half the time I wish I had my phone so I could write stuff down because you have all these great thoughts. And then you get home, you're like, what just happened?
I know. It's so funny you said that. When I'm training sometimes, like
Right,
I'll
yeah.
listen to a podcast though,
Right.
like in my gym, like running when I run, it's the same thing you do.
Right.
I don't want my phone with me, nothing. But I'm like, man, you get like podcasts or like whatever YouTube video and you hear all
Right.
these amazing things. You're like, shit, I should be writing this down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you
Like
forget.
right. This revelation that comes on this podcast is one line.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, I wish I could highlight this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And what is your preferred method of training? I know you do like a lot of long distance running. Is that like, do you do marathons? Is that
no, I've only done never actually done a full marathon.
is one in the future potentially? Is it
Probably.
something you want to eventually try?
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it. And anyone else in your family runners? Is that like a
Not
just-
really.
not really? You just
My niece,
okay.
she's run like long distance through college.
So so would you is running first and foremost for you over like other like resistance training or like a CrossFit?
Like I did the CrossFit thing for a while. Like love being in the gym.
Beat the shit out of yourself. 12 injuries later.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I'm not always like fixated on one, I guess, mode of
Yeah.
working out. It's just something.
Yeah. So no marathons. We're thinking of maybe doing a marathon.
Yeah, we'll find something to do in the future. I did Boston in 2019. Well, there's a military version of it, so I did it with like a 35-pound backpack.
Okay. So is that like considered rucking?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Rucking's something I'm looking to get into.
it's brutal.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It's brutal.
I hear it's just a great.
There's a method. There's a way to like do it properly.
Okay.
Instead of just throwing 50 pounds on your back and walking.
Yeah, I think you
Like
have to
a
be smart about it because, like, if you're a hard head, you'll be like, whatever, put it on there and try to muscle through. But then you're probably like wear yourself out too soon. Then you can't even enjoy the.
Yeah, that's what happened to me
purpose
when
of
I
it.
did the marathon with the ruck.
It's too much.
I was a disaster for weeks.
Yeah.
Weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, because I've been weighing like you have to have 35 pounds, and I had been weighing it on my bathroom scale, which is not accurate. So the thing had been like 55 pounds.
Wait, it was that far off?
Oh, yeah. Just because like the sides were hanging down. And like I was doing like, training. Like the longest I did was probably like 14 miles. And like the day of, like they actually like hang it from like a scale. And it was like, 54 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, you want to take anything out? Like I have a sandbag in there. It's about all we got. So I went with it. And it was rough.
I mean, I see like they sell like what is it? Go Rucking or something.
Yeah, Go Ruck.
Yeah,
It's a
Go
big
Ruck.
one.
Yeah, I was looking on there. I got to learn a little bit more about it. Make sure I purchase the right one because sometimes these companies have too many options, and I'm like a little bit of FOMO. I'm like, wait a minute, is that the one I'm supposed to get?
Right. And there's a lot of flair to it.
Yeah,
Like options and like
yeah.
just
I just want the black and white version, like
Right.
clean, easy, so I can do it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have like one of them? Like,
I have two like backpacks that I use. I have like an actual like army ruck that I have.
Okay.
And then I have another one.
was that something you did in like for
Yeah, it's
training?
part of
Like
training.
that's what you guys would actually
Yeah.
do, right? Yeah. Okay, I thought so.
Yeah, like I lived out of a backpack for like 2 years, out of a rucksack. And it's
So,
just
like,
part of life.
I mean, yeah, no, it is a part of life, but it's funny though. It's kind of I guess I was trying to find if there's a correlation between your military training of health and fitness into like you just because you got so used to it, like that just was the natural thing, or if it was more of like I enjoy getting, rest and recover. That's how I rest and recover is by like working out, or
Right.
like I would just did it for so long that if I didn't do it, I don't know what the hell I'd do myself.
Yeah, like I've gone through periods where I didn't work out for a time, like a year
Mhm.
or two. Like you gain weight, you feel terrible about yourself. like,
Yeah,
your joints
like-
hurt in a different way.
Yeah, in a different way. Yeah, that's true.
As you get older, like wiser, I guess.
Yeah.
To an extent. And
My training has changed a lot,
right.
over the
Trying to be a little
years.
smarter about that.
Yeah. You want to stick around. You want to be able to do the same shit, when you're in your 60s and 70s, and
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm with
I think longevity is part of it.
Yeah.
I think it just helps, like, be a better dad, better husband, better at work. It just all kind of flows into it.
Yeah, I've always been into it, health and fitness, of all different levels. I played sports and weight training, and I even did boxing on and off a little bit. Never liked to compete, but I did a lot of training. And I just find that, like, it makes me, it's great to improve in those things, but it's actually, like, where I really seem to benefit, I feel anyway, is in work, family,
Right.
a little more level-headed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also I find that, maybe you can attest this as well, I'm a little more disciplined in other things.
Right.
When I'm more consistent with my training, it just, I don't know if it's because I feel like I'm making gains in that. I should just keep carrying it over to other things.
But you've accomplished something in your day.
Yeah.
And it's humbling at the same time.
Yeah, it is. It's true.
Like, the weights don't lie.
No, they don't.
You either pick them up or you don't.
No, I still haven't figured out how I'll do a certain amount of weight one week, and then the next week I'm like, how the hell did I do this last week?
Right,
And
exactly.
It feels like a million pounds.
Right. I think, too, a big part of it's, like, a good example for my kids.
Okay.
Of just being physically active, not being, like, just doing something positive.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people have a lot of, we all have bad habits, but I think it's just a good example for your family that, you're capable
Absolutely
of doing things.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a discipline. And
right.
I grew up, my dad was always into weight training. I remember being a kid and I would go into the gym, and it's just funny now because, I have a gym here in the house, and my kids will come down while I'm working out, and and they'll do stuff. My son will come and do push-ups, and it's really, really cool. It's really, really neat.
Yeah, it's a good way to get involved.
Yeah, and I'm not forcing it. Like, it's I mean, they're young, but I just find it cool how they're starting to get a little more into it.
Right.
And I think that'll help them be better human beings overall.
Yeah.
Honestly. Yeah. So you're an officer currently. Is that like, hey, I'm hoping to take that out all the way into the sunsets, or is there other things that maybe sometimes you think of, like, because you've changed, so you've done quite a list here of things you've done. What are your thoughts on the coming years? Are there aspirations? Do you ever think to yourself, like, is this what I want to do?
I think I have this internal struggle all the time.
Okay.
Like, I kind of got to the goals where I wanted to in life, but, like, what's next?
Okay.
Like, I'm always looking for something else. I don't know what the next step is. Okay. It's something. Like, it just hasn't, like, the idea hasn't manifested itself yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always looking for the next thing.
Yeah.
However, it'll come. It'll click.
Come. Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Like, I've taken interest in, like, finance and, like, stock trading. Like, I'm terrible at it.
Wow.
But it's,
I don't know.
It's like, I'm always, like, trying something new.
Okay.
Started jiu-jitsu a year ago.
So you've been doing that only a year? I thought it was
about a year.
Okay, cool. I know you love it. Lauren talks about it all the time.
I absolutely love it.
Okay, cool. What do you love about it? Because, like, my cousin is massively into it, and I've done it with him a few times, but, like, not at a level I would consider myself that I do jujitsu by any means.
Yeah, I mean, I barely do it. I mean, I show up 3 times a week, and it's like a puzzle you'll never figure out. The physicality of it. And it's with a bunch of guys who, like, are, like, striving for some sort of excellence.
Yeah.
Like, it's on the mats, but, like, they're all successful in, like, other areas of their life as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's people from all different backgrounds. This morning I was just talking to a guy in between rounds, and he's a geoscientist. Like, he tests soil. Like, you'd never know it. And, I'm a police officer. Another guy, is in finance, and it's like they're all successful in their own right, but you come here and we all get humbled.
Yeah.
Me more than them usually.
That's okay though. But you need
it's a journey, and, like, you you're seeing like you're seeing progress,
Yeah.
and you're always getting a little better and figuring things out, and it's humbling.
Yeah. I mean, I see it's something I consider myself
Right.
potentially getting into doing, and I see a lot of benefits of a lot of guys that do it.
Right.
My one cousin has been doing it forever, and he teaches now, and it's just so funny because I think part of it, as skilled as he is, you would think the more skilled you get, the more confident, and I say confident, I mean confident in like a way of combat, almost of like fighting. But he's the most like, I think it just keeps him
Absolutely does.
like
Right.
like to not be that hothead. Like it's almost opposite.
Yeah, like you can think clearly,
Yeah.
and there's just an air of confidence to it. Yeah, there's always someone out there bigger. Like this morning,
Always.
I got choked out by a 16-year-old and a 60-year-old within minutes.
That is humbling.
Right. It's just humbling, and it's
Yeah.
the one kid is like a high-level high school wrestler, and
Okay. All right.
the other guy's been training for 40 years.
And that's funny how experience
Right.
will trump
And I
that.
wish I would have started 20 years ago.
Like a guy almost double your age.
Right.
That's that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's usually the experience, man.
Right. And
That's
it's an art and a science, and
yeah, I think
It's-
that's what I'm getting at. I think it is more of an art,
right. Yep.
and it's
There's
something
different
you have
techniques
to,
to it, and
yeah.
um,
And the popularity is growing tremendously,
absolutely.
like huge,
Right.
huge. A lot of people I follow, like they all do jujitsu now,
Right.
and I guess it's one of those things that they contemplate, they do, and then they get hooked.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're hooked, like you really enjoy
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Yeah, so like 3 days a week.
Yeah, try to.
You try to.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure. It's
Yeah,
tough.
I strive for 3 days.
balancing,
Hopefully 2, at least
you know.
one. It's a good way of just keeping level headed. When you encounter stress in your life, it makes things a little easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
My son tried karate for a little bit, and he seemed to enjoy it. I had a hard time getting into it.
right.
But like, and I know a lot of people start from all different other types of fighting forms, and then a lot of them end up at jujitsu, and I'm sure that all helps them be better at it.
Right.
But I told my son, I'm like, if you don't dig this, because he did like the idea of it, but there were certain things about it that I could tell he was a little bored with, and I'm like, I think you might like jujitsu, buddy.
Yeah.
One day we're going to talk about
Right.
that when you get a little bit older, but maybe we'll do it together. He'll be choking me out when he's 60.
Yeah. That's a good time.
Yeah, I mean, hey man, you got to have
It's an outlet.
your outlets.
Yeah.
It's important, and the world's a grind. Being a dad, you're a husband. You have a dog to be responsible for, and even being an officer. Like you show up to work, like that's the thing about being an officer. I always think about like you got to be on, because if you're not, like somebody's life could be in jeopardy, or
You don't know when you're gonna have to perform
Right.
at the highest level,
at
at the absolute
when
highest
you
level.
just don't know when it's coming.
You don't-
Like,
you have
you
no
don't
idea.
know. It could be a day you're retired going in. It could
Right.
end up being the hardest day you've ever had.
Right. And
know.
somebody calls you, they don't care what kind of day you've had.
No, they
Like
don't care.
you show up to help and solve a problem,
Right.
and it doesn't, you've got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And, like being physically fit, and, it's jujitsu, and it helps you navigate those challenges.
Yeah. So tying it together, I would consider you somebody who's pretty mentally tough, and maybe the reason is you've consistently challenged yourself pretty much your whole life, it sounds like, right? And then leadership too. With leadership and mental toughness, there's also in there is discipline. And you're probably somebody who's just naturally pretty disciplined as a human being, right? So I feel like to be an officer in the military, like, again, you don't know what today brings. You could have another job, you could work at a bank, and you can maybe get through the day, not having the best day, whatever, but like your deal is a little different. So I mean, as that, I would bet whatever you do next, because of your background of success here, and pretty much you're checking boxes off, good for you. That is awesome. Whatever it's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, man. Wrapping this up, I'm just curious. Do you have a favorite quote? Something you refer back to? It's okay if you don't. I'm just curious.
The one thing, the thought that comes to mind, not specifically a quote, like, I'm never satisfied.
Okay.
It's like, I never, like, you get to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always like the journey better than the actual like outcome at the end.
Yeah.
Because at the end of it, you're like, all right, it's like what's next?
Yeah.
I'm always like, I'm never satisfied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You are to an extent. You get professionally.
So you're grateful for your achievement.
Absolutely.
But you're like, there's got to be more. There's something more.
I only have so many years on this earth.
Right.
Like, let's pack in as much as we can.
Yeah.
I don't know what that looks like.
That's
but
awesome.
let's, keep going. But, you're always looking for that next pursuit.
Yeah.
And you don't know what opportunities are going to present itself.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you just got to take the plunge.
Yeah, for sure. How about like a favorite book or something like that? Are you into books? I
love reading.
You love
All
reading.
military history stuff.
Okay.
We can always learn things from what others experienced in the past and not make those same mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you got to make the mistakes, but if you can be like, I've seen this before. Like General Mattis, General Mad Dog Mattis, that was his big quote, was that's why he always read, because I don't have enough time in life to experience all these things.
Yeah.
But if I can read about someone else experiencing it, and
super powerful.
I've seen this somewhere else. Let me do A instead of B,
and
not make those mistakes.
Yeah, it's the importance of it, because like I go on and off, like I'm always listening or learning something, but like sometimes I'll get really into a book.
Right.
And it's funny, every time I do, I never regret that I engaged in trying to learn, read, because of what you're talking about right there. Like I pick something up, I'm like, wow, like if I never picked up that book, I would have never thought of that or engaged in that or figured that out or heard of that website, whatever it may be. So it's important to continue
And challenge yourself to think differently.
Yeah.
Because we all get kind of stuck in like, this is how I am.
Yeah.
You think differently about something than I do.
Yeah.
And, it forces you out of your comfort zone in decision making.
Yeah. All right. And I have one last question for you. And this is a fun one, so it could be anything. Yeah, I always feel like it says a lot about somebody's personality. What's your favorite movie?
Top Gun.
Okay. That I see. All right. I should have just why did I even ask that? I probably should have just.
The OG. The original Top Gun. Favorite movie.
I should have saw that coming. Well,
Favorite
Jeff,
movie.
I really appreciate you being here and being respectful of your time, and also
thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, and like being willing to share. So that's the benefit of this, is hopefully someone can listen to this and connect, and it could be an inspiration, or it could be just like, hey, man, I'm going through something similar. Maybe that's my next step. So I appreciate you sharing and giving us your time, man.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, man.